there's a belief that you need to have a job. And that job must be something that you don't like doing. If you did like doing it, then why would anyone pay you to do it? We live in this world obsessed with jobs. I mean, like, this is how most people make most of their money. I totally understand that. Most people have an employer, and they give that employer some time and effort, and in return, they receive some money as an exchange. But I've observed that a lot of people engaging in this have a rather miserable relationship with it. There is a monotony and a frustration with this kind of existence that a lot of people seem to feel. And I've even found myself in situations like this where it just feels consistently repetitive, like I'm doing the same thing, and like there's no escape. And if you think about it, when we spend 40 hours a week working, most of our alive, productive energy is spent at work. The time that we're not at work, the evenings and weekends and holidays, are sort of the scraps, the leftovers, if you will, to some degree. So if your most alert and alive time is spent at work, then most of your life is spent at work. And for me, at least in the past, it's felt like I'm exchanging my life for the monetary value that I'm receiving that supposedly is for me to live, right? So I'm giving you the thing that is most precious in exchange for something that allows me to continue to exist. And people continue to do this because they need to, or more importantly, they believe that they need to pay the house payment or the car payment or pay off their student loans. You need to buy groceries or gasoline or baby diapers or whatever else. Okay, fair enough. But how much are we trading our life and our misery for something that we don't even really want? Let me explain. Do you really want the fancy new car that requires the $600 a month car payment on it? Or do you feel like you should have that car? Is there a reason why you can't buy a 10-year-old car? What if you didn't have a car at all? Or what if you and your wife shared a car? You need to pay for expensive rent. Why? What if you live somewhere that was cheaper? If the commute is too long, what if you lived in a smaller space? Now, I can already hear the hate comments on this video saying, no, you don't understand my situation, I need to. Okay, fine. If that's your position, then great. That's what you need to do. Fundamentally, what I'm talking about here isn't just buying a cheaper car or living in a less fancy apartment. It's about having choices and agency over your life. So I grew up in a big, beat up old house that my parents bought at a sheriff's auction when I was 1 year old. When we moved in, the house didn't have running water. It didn't have a kitchen, it didn't have a bathroom. We slept on the floor of the living room for 2 months while my parents fixed it up. The house had graffiti on the walls and trash in the rooms. They had to clean it up. They had no formal construction experience, but they fixed the place up. Growing up, we had one car, and it was always like 15 years old. We didn't go out to eat, we cooked at home every night. We were vegetarian, my parents didn't drink alcohol, and when we went on vacation, we didn't stay in a hotel, we stayed in a campground. But I had a fantastic childhood. My dad was a professional storyteller, meaning he would go into schools and libraries and tell stories to groups of people. My mom stayed at home as the primary parent, homeschooling me and my 2 younger siblings. And we lived this life that was full to the brim with love and support. We had a room in our house that was packed full of books. We called it the library. It turns out it doesn't really cost that much to buy books, especially when you're not looking for the latest fads or trends, when you're not shopping at Barnes & Noble. Beautiful copies of Jane Eyre show up at thrift shops and garage sales every day. We had one TV in our house that lived inside of this case, and once or twice a week we would sit down as a family to watch a movie, or maybe an old DVD of I Love Lucy or The Andy Griffith Show. Financially, our life was by no means extravagant, but instead what we focused on was community. We focused on connecting with other people. We homeschooled together with other families, going to each other's houses throughout the week for a science group or a media and literacy club. People would come to our house for a literature club or writing workshops. Twice a month we would have potluck dinners at someone's house where we would sit and eat together and share stories. We were rich in great connections and community because that's what we were focusing on. And fundamentally, all of this is to say that you have agency and choice in your life. You're not forced to work that 9-to-5 job that you absolutely hate. There are other options for what you can do. If you want to work that job because you find it incredibly fulfilling, fantastic, go ahead and do it. But if anyone tells you that you need to, they're lying or they're projecting their own insecurities. There are so many other options for what you can do in life. You could work part-time or you can start a business. Maybe you've always had a passion for model trains or protecting pandas. There is work that you can go out and do toward those ends. And you might say, well, it doesn't make nearly as much money. Who cares? In the end, we're all gonna die. If that's where we're all headed, don't you want to be doing what you love? And I can already hear the comments back about, well, you need to have security in your life and you need to make sure you have your bases covered. Okay, yes, perhaps to some degree. Maybe it's worth it to save up an emergency fund that you have. Set aside a certain amount of money that you're not gonna touch. But especially if you don't have kids, we live in a country where you can go down to zero and come back up again. That's one of the beautiful things about America. If you really do lose all of your money, if you really are down on your luck, there are ways that you can get out of it. We have Section 8 housing and food stamps for a reason. And I'm not saying you should rely on them, but know that unless you're addicted to drugs, rock bottom doesn't mean you're sleeping under a bridge. In fact, probably the worst case scenario for most people is that you have to go move back in with a family member. Okay, that's the worst case scenario. That's if you go and try to pursue the thing that you want to pursue, crap. I'm back at home for 3 months while I get back on my feet. Yes, we need money to survive, but I've found it's usually a lot less than we think. And oftentimes the things that we're paying for are not things that we inherently really want to have. They're things that we believe that we should have. We believe that we should have a car. We believe that we should live in a fancy area. We believe that we should be able to go out to dinner twice a week. What are the things that you want to prioritize? What are the things that you want to focus on? How do you want to spend your life? Because at least for me, when I think about working a job that I hate for most of the time that I'm alive, that sounds like a very miserable way to live. Wouldn't it be better if I did something that I loved and made a little bit less money than doing something that I hate? We live in a world today where there are a lot of options. You can start a business tomorrow, promote it on LinkedIn, and start getting clients within a couple of weeks. I think fundamental to all of this for me is a sense of intentionality in terms of where I want to spend my time and effort. Where do I want to devote my energy in life? Many people get praised by their friends and family by how much money they make or their status at Megacorp. But at least in my eyes, that seems to be all worthless if you don't enjoy the life that you lead. Like, what's the point? And look, maybe I'll feel differently in 5 years. Maybe I'll feel differently once I have kids. But I believe fundamentally life is meant to be lived. Yes, we're meant to do work, absolutely. But this idea that we have to do work that makes us miserable is absurd. And just because we live in this world where everyone goes to work and kind of hates their jobs and muscles it through the week until they get to Friday where they can go out to a bar and sedate themselves, that doesn't mean I have to do that too. My aim is to do things that I like doing, things that bring me joy and fulfillment. So right now I have 2 different jobs. One, I work 20 hours a week at my local library. I work as a CSS, a customer service specialist, meaning I'm the person when you come into the library that waves, hey, welcome to the library. I help people with their accounts. I help people find materials in the library. And generally, I find the work extraordinarily fulfilling. I love what libraries do, the programs and services that they offer, and being a part of that is really rewarding. On the other side, I run a video production company called Gentle Embers Media, where I create videos for nonprofits, organizations, small businesses. I also create movies and TV shows through that. And that work I find deeply inspiring. That's what I've wanted to do literally my entire life since I was a little kid. So even when I'm just going out to create music videos or record a corporate video, I find that work really exciting. I find that I'm pushing myself in new directions and I'm growing as a person through the work that I'm doing. I've gotten caught up at times in sort of the internet hustle world, which I think there is value to that to some degree. Like, you do need to have momentum. You do need to push yourself to do things. Like, I don't always want to go on the film shoot. I don't always want to sit down and write that screenplay. But when I do finish that work, I feel really good about it. I feel really fulfilled. I feel like I've done something important. And that isn't to say that I'm making some grand cosmic difference. Like, I understand that we're all going to be dust and forgotten in a few generations. I'm not trying to leave my legacy or I'm not trying to leave my mark. While I'm here, I want to create stuff that I'm really proud of. I want to do things with my life that I think are impactful and meaningful. And fundamentally, I want to spend my time living a life that I find to be enjoyable. And I think it's so easy to get caught in this rat race where it just feels like the next corporate promotion, just doing the next thing, just pushing yourself a little bit further. That's not the way that I want to live. I'm not really interested in that. I want to have freedom. I want to be able to explore the world. I don't want to be tied down to something. And recognize that we all do have choices. We can choose how to spend our time. We can choose who to be around, who to marry, where to live, and that these choices do dramatically impact the quality of our lives. It's really easy to look at everyone around me and say, oh, I can see by pattern matching to them exactly how I should be living my life. But if everyone around you is miserable, then by pattern matching to what they're doing, you're just going to be miserable too. We're all going to die. And I think it's important to think about death a lot. We don't know when it comes. If we're lucky, we get about 80 years. But it also could be any day. Any of us could get hit by a bus or a car, or suddenly get a terminal illness. And so all that we really have is the present moment. We only have the time that we exist in right now. And the moment is mine to live as I want to live it. And maybe it's the case that if everyone did this, if everyone deprioritized work and focused more on the things that they found more core to their lives, that everything would fall apart. But maybe not. Also, not everyone is going to do what I'm suggesting in this video, not even close. There's going to be plenty of people still clamoring to climb the corporate ladder, but we all live with individual autonomy. We all live with the ability to go in the direction that we want to go, the direction that fulfills us the most. And oftentimes the things that we're held back by are the beliefs of others around us. And attempting to let go of those as much as we possibly can and lean into what is it that I want to do? How do I want to spend my time? I think is one of the most important questions we can be asking. Thank you everyone for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye everybody.